Alright, this second video is a little more sarcastic than the first, but still probably is going to take it somewhat seriously at one point or another. Now, I have my notes here. This is the tradition of the University of the Mountain regarding rocks. That's right, rocks. You know, or rocks, boulders, pebbles. Well, there's not really pebbles here, but I guess some of these you would consider boulders because they're very big rocks. Big enough that, it would take probably at least 2 or 3 relatively well-built guys to pull it off the ground, or we just use machinery. But anyway, yes, there's a fascination on this campus with rocks. Now, the first obvious thing you'll see if you drive, let's say you drive into campus, driving, you see, eventually you're going to see a bunch of buildings made out of rock. Now, the inside isn't completely rock, because if that were the case, we'd probably die or go insane or something. But a lot of these buildings, pretty much supposedly a lot of them, were made from stone from a very close quarry. I don't know if there's actually a quarry very, very close, but I really am not certain about that. But basically, that's something they pride themselves on. That's how I'm being serious about it. But it doesn't stop at rock buildings, because, rock buildings, okay, that's quaint, that's nice. It makes you feel like you're in some old place in England or something, even though, well, it's not really the same weather. Anyway, next up, you probably might notice these signs, or, I don't know, I could call them like rock post markers or some shit like that. But basically, they're these giant, kind of more flat rocks, and they're jammed in the ground, and then you carve a sign on them, or you carve some words on them to direct people. And then, in the case of the chapel, the big giant chapel, which is also made out of rocks, there's a giant stone, that's a stone slab, and they basically slam it in the ground, and they have this nice little glass thing where you can stick magnetic letters in there, and they tell you things about services and all that. It's very nice to it. And it doesn't stop there. But I haven't even gotten to the silly part yet. Because you can think, okay, rock buildings, rock signs, that's still pretty cool. It's not like there's a whole bunch of rock signs everywhere. There's maybe 2 or 3 at the most. And maybe a few more if you really, really look out your way. But we haven't even gotten to the silly ones. Now, rock benches. These aren't very silly either, but they can get they seem a little out of place, maybe. But a lot of them are pretty good. They're nice and flat. The stone has been carved very well, and you can just sit on it and just go, hey, I'm not having a bumpy stone on my butt. But there are a few I've noticed, at least 1 or 2, that, well, you wouldn't want to sit on for long because it's very bumpy, very uncomfortable. But yeah, again, any commentator at this point, any poster is going to say, come on, you can't really be trying to be sarcastic about this. But I haven't even gotten started. Now, this last one might be a little more esoteric, I suppose. They have a lot of plants around here, because this place is known for being very, I'll say, I don't want to say green because it has some buzzwords, but they wouldn't not call themselves green. So we'll say green, very, lots of flowers and trees, and we have bushes and everything like that around a lot of the buildings. And in some cases, there's these kind of drop-offs, so they have to make these kind of walls, and what do? They stack rocks. Kind of like, first thing come to mind is the Flintstones. That's what the people who manage the grounds do, apparently. They stack rocks together and make these walls, and it looks really, really cool. Just don't walk on them, because you'll probably fall. They're not that far to fall, but you don't want to break them. But yeah, this is where it gets a little bit on the excessive side with using rocks. Although who knows where those rocks come from? They could be rocks you bought at Pottery Barn or something. But we get to the last one, which, I almost would have wanted to talk about this for 5 minutes by itself, but I probably couldn't without including these. So to talk about this final little, I don't know if this is actually officially a tradition. I need to ask some of the people who've been here a long time about this. But if you look close enough to some of the dorms, you will see rocks lining the side of the road. Not all the time, but sometimes you'll see giant boulder-sized rocks on the ground, maybe a couple of feet away from each other, and it goes on for a while. especially near it's a dorm called McCready. It used to be a hospital, I think. But you'll look, you'll be driving and you'll notice, wait a minute, rock, 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 rock. There's like 9 rocks down the side of the road. Why? I asked myself the same question just this year, and I couldn't find an answer to it except similarly why they have rock benches and rock frickin' slab signs and even those walls made out of little rock slabs. And I really shouldn't knock it because the house that I live in now has like a staircase kind of like that where the rocks are stacked up, but at least they have molding and stuff in between them. These don't have molding. These are just like the old-fashioned caveman freaking things, but it's fine. I'm not gonna complain about that. I'm gonna complain about the strangest use of rocks I've ever seen, where you're just taking these giant boulders and dropping them on the side of the road. There's even the kind of, it's not very long, but you'll see about 3 or 4 rocks just down the driveway into this dorm I'm living in now. There's a tree in the middle of them, but not in the middle of them. It's not like they're in a circle, but you'll see a tree stand out kind of, but you'll see a lot more trees and you'll see rocks in terms of like rocks just that are rock boulders. But in any case, that's the part of the rant I was wanting to get to, because everything else I can explain. I can say, hey, yeah, this is cool, isn't this? This is kind of classical or, medieval, makes you feel like you're in a small town or some crazy shit like that, but not a line of rocks big enough to make a wrecking ball that are lining the side of the road, and the only real use for them is, well, I've stood on them, and you can jump from one to another, and it's kind of interesting. I don't know. Somehow my mind is thinking like training, like balance training. You could just keep jumping, but in all seriousness, the only thing any normal person in general, which I'm not exactly normal, I was thinking of martial arts training suddenly, but a normal-minded person would probably just say, okay, maybe I could sit on it for a little bit. And that's about the only thing I can think anyone would actually use it for, as opposed to just driving by it in your car and saying, hey, cool, giant rocks, which I don't think any person in their right mind is going to say, because you'd have to be either mentally retarded or you'd have to be suffering a freaking concussion or something and just came out of a coma, and the first thing you see is a rock. Of course you're going to think it's cool because it's the first thing you've seen in like 2 years. So, yeah. Alright, there went my anger, I guess, or whatever, my ranting mode. So I'm already about 8 minutes, so I might as well cut it off. But I hope you enjoyed this. And you'll only see one picture this time, probably, but you'll only see one picture of the last one. Anyway, see you later.